Hi there, I'm Vlad and I usually take photos like the ones that you see on the screen right now. Today I want to start a new series where I break down one of my photos starting from the concept and going through the camera, the settings, the light setup, the post-processing and everything in between so others could learn from my thought process and understand the magic behind the scenes. For today's photos, I want to reuse the idea of the fake window that I created in a short video a while ago. With it, I got shots like this one and this one. I was using the light coming from the fake window as the key light in my shot, but today I want to try something a bit different and use this setup more like a practical light and add a few more lights to the scene instead of relying on it to provide all the light in the shot. Now, for the people that don't know what I'm referring when I'm talking about the fake window, I'm using two V-flats to block out a fake wall and using a window blind in between them to create my window. And behind that I have two lights. One of them is set to a higher power and it's really warm in tone, and the other one is set to a colder tone because the sun is not the only light source outside, and I want to simulate basically the light coming from the sun and the light reflected in the skies around it for more natural looking light. And you might have noticed that I also have a black background up. I think that's mostly necessary because my window blinds are light in color and also very reflective, so I needed to create some contrast behind of them in order to get those nice looking horizontal lines in my shots. And this right here is the first shot that I got with this fake window setup. It's not bad, but something is missing. I needed curtains, and because I had no way to rig some actual curtains in front of it, I draped some drop cloth of my V-flat. And this tied together the entire look. Light was reflecting off the drop cloth and also the window blinds were creating some shadows on them, so it would look very homely, warm and welcoming. Now let's circle back to what I wanna do today. I want to use the entire window thing as a backdrop for a really relaxing scene where I sit in this armchair, maybe reading a book, and create a warm and cozy look, like someone is looking through a window at me relaxing in my own home. Before I continue talking about the lights that I'm using, I want to talk about the lens. I'm using the Nikon 50mm AFD in 1.4 variant that I have modded with an anamorphic aperture. The 50mm focal length is really useful here. It's a bit wide so I can fit more of my body easily in shot, not wide enough so I would see beyond my fake window and fake wall, and at the same time it's tight enough so I can have LED lights rather close to my body for a really tight light control, and at the same time not have them be right in shot because that would break the illusion. And I started my shoot having this UV filter that I've coated with a mist of white paint to have some low contrast and a bit of a smoke atmosphere in the room, but I have later replaced that with a plexiglass sheet that I've mounted on a light stand in front of the camera at around 20 cm. I'm using it to create the illusion that you're looking at me through a window, but at the same time combining it with the anamorphic insert in my lens. The bokeh that is going to generate is going to be swirly, so it's gonna have a really interesting looking pattern in front of the actual subject. I'm doing this to create an interesting foreground and add some texture to the photo, but this wouldn't work if I wouldn't have those dark walls, because the grime on the plexiglass wouldn't have something to shine against. And if you're wondering what's this little thing in my right hand in the shot, is a Bluetooth remote control that I'm using to simulate that I'm tapping on the screen to take the photo. The remote control is much easier to conceal, maybe in the book or in a hand that's not really in the shot. This is really useful because I can mount my phone on a tripod in front of me and I don't have to hold it in my hands while I also pose for the photos. And speaking of posing, in the beginning I posed with the back towards the camera, basically an over the shoulder kind of pose, but this really made me look really narrow in my shoulders, so I turned more towards the camera in order to look manlier, and the overall posing evolved from there. The idea was to look natural and relaxed in the armchair and not like I was posing for a photo without even acknowledging the camera. And before I talk about lighting some more, I wanna acknowledge the camera settings. In the studio, I usually go for 1/50 of a second, especially if I'm shooting on a tripod and with a shorter focal length. This allows me to capture a bit of natural movement in the photo if there happens to be any in the shot. For the aperture, I wanted the water and the smudge on the plexiglass to be completely out of focus and swirly, so f1.4 was a given, and the ISO is basically where I'm controlling my exposure. Some of the LEDs that I'm using are at their maximum power, so I'm going to have to compensate with ISO to basically give them a chance to be seen in the photo. And now let's finally talk about all the lights that I'm using for the shot. Sadly, I don't have a video of me turning them on one by one because they use like 4 different apps, but I'm gonna put a photo on the screen right here, and now I'm going to explain their role one by one, starting with this little guy over here. This light has only one purpose. It adds a bit more light that would reflect in the water that's on my sheet of plexiglass and creates some more bokeh balls for the foreground texture that I've talked about before. Now you can see 2 more tube lights, and their role is to create a light pattern on my face. I want the farthest part of my face to be illuminated orange to add to the orange that's coming from my fake window. The center of the face, I want it to be green to create some color contrast that I'm gonna talk about a bit later. And finally, on the closest part of my face to the camera, I want some red, and that one is coming from the square that you see in the foreground. This one has a little trick. It plays a fire animation, so it adds not only red but also some white light that mix together in creating some colors in the shadow. This is how it looked at the end of the photoshoot. It might look very complicated and unnecessary, but I didn't want the darkest part of my images to go black, so I had to blast some light into the shadows. That was my fill light basically, coming from that little square. And next up, the light on my face was progressively getting more and more powerful from the camera towards the back, because it was supposed to look like the sunset is illuminating me, but at the same time I wanted some green in there to balance the other colors in the shot, and I didn't want to get a monochromatic looking photo at the end of the day with just orange tones coming from the window. I want to show you one more thing before I go into Lightroom and talk a bit about my post-processing. I knew I was going to crop these images to 65 by 24, basically a very wide aspect ratio, so I didn't mind having that green light in the shot. But to be sure that it's not really in the final shot, I use this 3D printed thing that clips to the back of my phone and covers part of my screen just enough so I would actually see the cropped version of the final photo. Finally, let's talk a bit about my post-processing workflow. First thing, when I come into Lightroom, I make sure to get rid of the Adobe Color Camera profile. Usually I'm going for camera flat or camera neutral to actually get a good feeling about how the image looks like. This time I settled on Adobe Standard. I'm combining it with the Kodak Aerocolor simulation that I created using the technique that I showed in my last video. Also, in the beginning I'm going to add my grain presets, and looking at the photo I don't think there's quite a lot to be done, mostly a bit of masking. But first of all, let's crop it to 65 to 24, the very wide aspect ratio that I absolutely love. And now we can see that I do need a bit more light on my face. There are a few details that I need to take care of, and I'm going to remove just the knobs on my light stand and let it hang in there as if it would be something like an actual light or a light fixture that's in the room, creating a bit more realism to the entire scene. I'm also going to apply my saturation roll of preset because the window behind of me is totally yellow, and that will help me tone it down a bit. With that done, I'm going to create a little mask on my face, and let's add a bit of light to it, not very much. Also, I'm going to bring up the shadows just a tiny bit and increase the highlights as well for a bit more contrast. I do need a bit more saturation, and the edit is pretty much done, but of course I'm going to take care of a few more little details inside Photoshop, like adding black bars and all the other stuff. If I wanted to play around with the colors a bit more, I would usually use the calibration panel. And finally, because I want my grain to be really visible in the final photos, when exporting them, I make sure to check this box right here. This is called output sharpening, and it's basically applying a layer of sharpening after all the edits that I've done are already applied to the photo. This also sharpens the grain that I added, so my all-in-one grain preset will shine through all the compression that will occur online. And finally, here are some of my final photos. I hope you liked the video, and I'm sorry that this time there wasn't much need for a lot of post-processing, but I make sure in the next one I'll include a lot more tips in the editing part. Let me know what do you think in the comments down below. Don't forget to click the like and subscribe and do whatever else you like to encourage the algorithm to recommend my videos to more photographers.